So despite eventually getting the victory against Sheffield United, I thought it was pretty evident that United have a serious problem with ball progression, particularly against systems like Sheffield United's where they aren't looking to press you aggressively and instead are content to sit off and look to block the middle of the pitch and force you into wide positions. But also if you want cheap good quality football jerseys for the new season or retro jerseys from the past 40 years, then check out jerseyfifa.com, a link will be in my Instagram bio, and if you use coupon code Atlantis you should get a discount as well. I'll leave my Instagram at the top of the description and comment section, and a link will be in my Instagram bio. But from the start, when I saw that Dalot and Lindelof were the likely fullback pairing, I assumed it would be Dalot from the left and Lindelof from the right, or at least if Dalot was playing as a right back, he would be the player to invert in field, playing more as a central midfielder. However, what we actually saw was that when United had the ball in the middle third against Sheffield United's narrow 4-1-3-2, it was actually Lindelof who was the one inverting into central midfield a lot more than Dalot, with Lindelof moving in from the left side, creating a double pivot alongside Amrabat at times, whilst Dalot for the majority of the game really held a deeper position, creating a back three with Maguire and Evans. And for me this really didn't make any sense at all, because what it meant was that Lindelof would often rotate with Bruno Fernandes on that left side, so when Bruno Fernandes dropped in front of the Sheffield United midfield line to receive the ball, we would see Lindelof pushing up into the half space, which is definitely not where you want him. The only thing I can think is that maybe Ten Hag wanted to keep Dalot on the right side so he could provide those over and underlapping runs for Antony, and whilst this was effective during certain periods of the game, they didn't do it enough for me to really think this was Ten Hag's priority. But regardless of individual players' positioning during the possession phase, the bigger issue for United is that I just think the system's far too wide and there's not enough intent with the passing, and you'll see it from these examples. So we see here as United have the ball in the middle third, they're up against Sheffield United, who are effectively using a very narrow midfield diamond, which at times does look like a narrow 4-3-3, when one of their midfielders pushes up alongside Archer and McBurney. But their main intention is to stop United working the ball into Amrabat and whoever else is in the centre of the pitch and force them out into wide positions. And so you can see in this phase of play, United have actually gone for a very wide system. You can see the 3-3 set up in the deeper area of the pitch, with Lindelof and McTominay pulling out into wide areas. And this is actually a pretty good tactic, to be fair, as it will force the two Sheffield United wide midfielders, which was McAtee and Hamer for the majority of the game. It will force them to pull out wider with Lindelof and McTominay, stretching Sheffield United's midfield line and creating more space in the centre of the pitch for United to take advantage of. The problem is United just don't take advantage of this at all. You see here as United work the ball backwards, which again isn't a problem, because as you can see as Dalot works the ball out to Maguire in a deeper position, this now forces the Sheffield United front two to push up, which in turn is going to create more space between the Sheffield United forward and midfield line. And we see it here as the ball goes into Johnny Evans. You can see if he gets the ball out of his feet and places quick pass into Lindelof, Lindelof now has the space to turn out and drive forward. And just by Johnny Evans being quicker to play this pass into Lindelof and Lindelof turning out, United would have been able to bypass not just the forward line but also the midfield line as well. But why try to progress the ball at all? I mean, we're only 15 minutes into the game, we might as well pass it round a bit, allow Sheffield United to get back into their defensive shape and then do the whole thing all over again. But this wasn't even the only example. I think this clip around 25 minutes into the game really epitomises everything United were doing wrong in this game. So you can see United are circulating the ball around the back line and Sheffield United are incredibly narrow. Not only are McBurney and Archer sitting incredibly narrow looking to cut off that pass between them to Amrabat, but you've also got McAtee and Hamer either side also retaining very narrow positions as well. And it's pretty obvious why the defensive side would want to stop the opposition being able to work the ball into central areas of the pitch, because if you just think about it logically, if United were able to work it from Evans to Lindelof and into Amrabat in the centre of the pitch, if he's able to turn with the ball, he just has more passing options. He can play either left or right, into either the half spaces or switch the play out to either flank. However, with Sheffield United sitting extremely narrow, they force United out wide, and when a United player receives it on the flank, just naturally they have less passing options because they're right next to the touchline. And the effect of this is it makes United's play a lot more predictable and often forcing them backwards, and that's what we saw throughout the game. United going forward a bit, turning backwards, and then just circulating the ball around with no real intention of looking to inject pace into the play. However, if we look at an example from the Manchester City-Brighton game, we can see exactly what United are lacking. So here we see Manchester City have possession approaching the middle third, and Brighton are using a very similar defensive shape to Sheffield United, almost a diamond sitting incredibly narrow. But the difference between City and United is that City are a lot more intentional in playing through the centre of the pitch, rather than just circulating the ball around the opposition system and allowing the opposition to just shuffle across and close off the spaces. Another thing we see from City which we don't see from United is the use of the goalkeeper in these sorts of areas. I mean, Ten Hag brought in Onana for this exact same reason. And so maybe he is going to do it further down the line, but I would like to see Andre Onana used in a similar way to how Pep uses Ederson and Ortega. And as I progress the clip, you'll see exactly why Pep wants this type of keeper and why he's asking Ortega in this game to move so far out of his box. So you can see here City effectively create a back three with Ortega between Akanji and Walker, who stretch out incredibly wide while John Stones and Rodri sit as a deep double pivot, and the way they look to break through Brighton's press is first by baiting them. Ortega and Rodri play a quick 1-2, baiting the Brighton front line into moving to press them, and as the ball goes back to Ortega, he shows elite level composure and passing ability to just split the Brighton forward line with one pass into Alvarez, who then is able to work the ball into Rodri, and even though City do get dispossessed here, they were still able to beat the Brighton forward and midfield line and work the ball through the middle third, and as the play progresses on in this move, you'll see City do this again. As Rodri has possession here, you'll see that City's possession shape is extremely narrow, a lot narrower than United's. Now this may be contradictory to what most people think should happen in possession. We're used to seeing Pep Guardiola's sides stretch the pitch, keeping the fullbacks and wingers wide in order to stretch the opposition's midfield line. However, because of the dominance of this sort of possession system, sides are now remaining extremely compact and essentially just sacrificing the wide zones in exchange for having more players clustered in the centre and stopping the opposition working the ball through the centre of the pitch. But the reason we're now seeing sides like Manchester City and even Brighton themselves using incredibly narrow possession shapes is because by having your players closer together, you can thread shorter passes and work the ball between the lines and play through the opposition centrally. Whereas if you look at United's possession shape, when Dalot or Lindelof receive the ball in a wide position, there is such a big distance between them and the central midfielders that they aren't able to thread the pass, splitting the opposition's forward line before they can get back and cover the space. But it's not just the actual possession shape, City's deeper players seem to also have a greater intention of actually trying to play these riskier passes into players in the centre of the pitch. We can see that Akanji has a ball here. If this is a centre back in the United team, this ball probably gets circulated right or left, passed around for a bit before someone eventually goes long and loses possession. However, despite Brighton's defensive shape being incredibly narrow, Akanji still has a passing ability in the vision to thread the ball into Alvarez, and as he receives the ball you can see the space he's able to turn into, and even though he does get dispossessed, Foden picks up the ball, and because the Brighton midfield line got baited into pressing higher up the pitch, there's that massive amount of space between their defensive and midfield line for City to exploit, moving the ball onto Doku to create a 1v1 situation. Now whilst this sort of intentional passing into the centre of the pitch does obviously come from individual players, it seems like with Ten Hag's United there's no real intention to actually play through the centre of the pitch, and they seem happy to just circulate the ball around the opposition's defensive system without actually breaking through. And it's not like United don't have the players to play these sorts of incisive passes, as I think both Maguire and Dalot are more than capable of threading these passes into players between the lines. But for whatever reason, Ten Hag doesn't seem to be instilling this intention in his deeper players. And this is why whenever Rashford or Fernandes receive the ball in deeper positions, because they know the creative burden is on them, they are more inclined to try these Hollywood passes, looking for players over the top, and this just leads to United losing possession. Instead, United would be much better trying to work the ball through the centre of the pitch with a few short incisive passes, rather than trying these long balls over the top, which may work 1 out of 5 times, but really it just gives the ball back to the opposition, and this is a main reason why we actually saw Sheffield United controlling the ball throughout periods of this game.